In April of 1968, Toei's flagship tokusatsu series Giant Robo aired its final episode. Following its conclusion, producer Toru Hirayama was tasked with developing Toei's next big show. A script was already written about a pro wrestling superhero, but he needed a design for the character, and so he turned to manga author Shotaro Ishinomori. Ishinomori read the script and designed a superhero who he would eventually decide to name Crossfire. Hirayama and his bosses at Toei loved the design, but that night Hirayama received a call from Ishinomori stating he wanted to try something different, something fantastic and grotesque as he put it. Ishinomori created a 100-page manga one-shot called The Skullman, about an anti-hero with supernatural powers. Skullman followed Tatsuo Kagura, a boy adopted by a Yakuza family after the murder of his parents. In his quest for revenge, he learns that his parents were members of a strange religious cult, and that his parents were actually murdered by his grandfather, who feared that the cult had insidious plans of world domination. The story was deemed too dark to adapt into a children's show, so the original script was adjusted and a new design was created for the character who would become 1971's Kamen Rider. The 2007 Skullman anime isn't just an adaptation of the original one-shot comic, but instead adapts the story while adding in elements and characters from other Ishinomori works. Instead of following the Skullman, we instead follow reporter Hayato Mikogami, who arrives in Otomo City investigating the mysterious death of a famous actress. Hayato is welcomed to the city by a local wealthy man named Mr. Kuroshio, but he's disliked and distrusted by Police Chief Haniwa. These characters don't appear in the original Skullman story, but are taken from Ishinomori's manga Ghost Ship. Though Mr. Kuroshio's design is based directly off his manga rendition, Haniwa and Hayato instead resemble the 1961 film adaptation of the characters. Mr. Kuroshio is an amalgamation of Ghost Ship's Mr. Kuroshio as well as Tatsuo Kagura's grandfather, as it was Mr. Kuroshio who ordered the assassination of Tatsuo Kagura's father. However, in the Skullman anime, Tatsuyuki Kagura wasn't seeking world domination, but genuinely believed in the religion he'd founded, which posed a threat to Kuroshio's group, the Otomo Concern, who felt the religion could be exploited for money and power. Instead of adopting Maya, Mr. Kuroshio marries Tatsuyuki Kagura's wife Sarah, becoming Maya's stepdad, and essentially becoming the shadow ruler of the White Bell Society. Mr. Kuroshio's group of politicians and bureaucrats, known as the Otomo Concern in Skullman, is also taken from Ghost Ship. In Ghost Ship, the Phantom Captain seeks to expose Kuroshio's corruption, so to spin the captain as the bad guy, the group builds a robot and forces it to attack the city while announcing that he is sent as a messenger of the Phantom Captain, even though this eventually ends with the Phantom Captain showing up to fight the Golem himself. This is similar to how in the Skullman, the Otomo Concern forces an assassin from the White Bell Society to dress as the Skullman and commit murders for them. Just like with the Golem in Ghost Ship, this is to keep the public from noticing the Skullman's true targets, and this also ends with the true Skullman fighting the fake one. In Ghost Ship, Hayato was a young boy whose parents are killed, leading to him being adopted by Mr. Kuroshio. However, Hayato discovers a conspiracy with the help of a strange man in a skull mask, and discovers that Mr. Kuroshio played a hand in his parents' death. It's clear that his backstory draws from Ghost Ship's Hayato as well as the one-shot's Tatsuo Kagura. Hayato as an adult, though, seems to draw inspiration from Kamen Rider's Hayato Ichimonji. This Hayato was a freelance photographer who was captured by the evil organization Shocker and turned into a cyborg. Aside from both Hayatos having similar names and appearances, Skullman's Hayato Mikigame would too fall victim to an evil organization, as at the end of the show we see him being consumed by the skull mask and remodeled into a cyborg by Van Vogt, with an after the credits scene revealing him to have joined the ranks of Black Ghost, serving as Cyborg 009 antagonist, the Skull. The Skull and Van Vogt aren't the only characters from Cyborg 009 who make appearances though. Both Helen and Gamo Whiskey appear alongside a team of cyborg soldiers numbered 01 through 05. The cyborgs, known as the Cirques, act as the prototypes for Black Ghost's 00 cyborgs. In the Skullman anime, the single Zero line of cyborgs are also voiced by voice actors from the 2001 Cyborg 009 anime. 01 is voiced by Shotaro Morikubo, who voiced 002. 02, who has flamethrowers, is voiced by Chafurin, who voiced 006. 03, who is a specialist in underwater warfare, is voiced by Mitsuo Iwata, who voiced 008. 04 is the weapons expert, voiced by Nobuo Tobita, who voiced 004. And 05 has super strength and is voiced by Akio Otsuka, who voiced 005. And of course the most obvious nod to 009 being Kiriko's baby at the end of the series, who has the same hairstyle as Joshi Mamura, 009 himself. Kiriko Mamiya is an interesting character who seems to be totally original to the anime, but due to the sheer volume of references contained in the series, it seems more likely that she draws inspiration from other Ishinomori characters, the most notable being Kiriko Mizuki from Kamen Rider X. Similarly to how Skullman's Kiriko comes to Otomo City in search of her boyfriend who's been taken in by the White Bell Society, Kiriko in Kamen Rider X is looking for her twin sister, who she learns was captured by the evil organization God, the Government of Darkness. This twin sister is the fiancé of Keisuke Jin, the man who would be kidnapped by God and turned into Kamen Rider X, while the Skullman's Kiriko is looking for her lover Koichi Jin, who was taken by the White Bell Society and turned into a pseudo-rider himself, being the White Bell Society's fake Skullman assassin. Throughout the series, Otomo Pharmaceuticals are working on a form of mind control, experimenting with different audio wavelengths that could force the members of the White Bell Society to obey them and forcing them to transform into monsters. This is taken directly from the Kamen Rider manga, where Hinoshita Electronics are working for Shocker to create a mind control frequency. Mr. Kusaka, who appears in the Skullman anime as a member of the Otomo concern, is an employee at Hinoshita Electronics in the Kamen Rider manga. Also, in Hayato's dream sequence, he sees Otomo pharmaceutical scientist Akira Usami dressed as the Kamen Rider villain Dr. Shinigami. Some purely aesthetic references I thought were interesting were graffiti in episode 2 that says "The Rider has come," Hayato driving a car that looks like a realistic reimagining of Kamen Rider Black RX's Rider-Ron car, and the disguises Hayato and Kiriko used to sneak into the White Bell Society, resembling a combination of the disguise Taki used to break into Shocker's base, along with Hayato's clothes from the Ghost Ship manga. Another series Skullman borrows characters from is Robot Detective, most notably the character Tsuyoshi Shinjo, who in the manga is a detective with the Tokyo Metropolitan Police, but in the Skullman he's a member of the Otomo Police Force, working under Haniwa. Later in the Skullman anime, Shinjo falls for a woman named Nami, but she chooses Hayato over him. In the manga, Shinjo and Nami's feelings are mutual, but the relationship isn't expanded on, as Shinjo just remarks that he's too busy for a relationship. In the Skullman, Shinjo has a senpai named Mitsuo Yamaki, but in the manga, this character is actually Shinjo's brother, Keitaru. A lot of background characters for the Skullman were sourced from Robot Detective K, like the politician that the fake Skullman kills, or the man that Hayato meets on his first night in the city. Hashimoto from the Tokyo Police appears among the Otomo concern, as well as Robot Detective K's antagonist, Ryuji Kirishima. And in the final episode, we see him shaking hands with Van Vogt, possibly setting up the origin for his robot rental company. After the shot of him in the newspaper, we immediately cut away to images of nationalist propaganda and soldiers marching down the street. Fitting, since Kirishima used his robots to kill and extort Japanese politicians as revenge for torturing his parents after they refused to build the Japanese government robots during World War II. Post-war nationalism is a huge part of the Skullman, represented in the character Kanji Isurugi, who says outright that he believes Japan should reclaim its territories and regain its rule over East Asia. His nationalism is his downfall though, as in the end, just as he's about to come out on top, he's approached by Van Vogt, who tells Isurugi that his ideology would fit perfectly with his own organization. However, despite the two both having similar goals and would mutually benefit each other, Isurugi orders that his men fire on Van Vogt because he doesn't need the help of a stupid foreigner. Unfortunately for Isurugi, Van Vogt's cyborg body is completely unharmed, and Van Vogt retaliates by swiftly killing Isurugi and his men. I actually don't know what manga Isurugi is from, but I suspect he may be from Kaiketsu Harimau, though information on this manga is a bit unclear as the character existed prior as a Japanese folk hero, so it's difficult to determine what was invented by Yoshinomori or what just existed previously. The manga is also just scarce in general, as it was released in 1960, 4 years prior to Cyborg 009. I know Harimau fights against corrupt politicians and deals heavily with the politics of post-war Japan, so I wouldn't be surprised if Isurugi was at least somewhat inspired by one of Harimau's villains. Otomo City even gets its name from Harimau's true identity, Michio Otomo, so the series was definitely in the consciousness of the Skullman's production staff at the time of writing. When Hayato and Kiriko take a tour of the White Bell Society, they reveal that the order was founded by Sokichi Bamba, presumed to be a pseudonym of Tatsuyuki Kagura. This is most likely meant as a reference to Emperor Bamba, leader of the Neo-Human Empire from Inazuman. The Skullman one-shot mentions that Tatsuyuki Kagura was a Neo-Human, born with supernatural powers, similar to the Neo-Humans in Inazuman. Sokichi Bamba is also the name of an unrelated Sentai character, the leader of Jaka, Big One. However, the use of the full name Sokichi Bamba is most likely due to Emperor Bamba not having a first name until his appearance in the Kamen Rider Fourze movie, where to differentiate him from the Sentai character, he was given the full name Kageto Bamba.
Since you're here with us, let me give you something to take with you to your grave. The man you're looking for's name is Bamba. He's based in Japan, and with a switch, he can morph into a monster.
Kiyoichiro Tachigi is a character from the original Skullman manga. However, in the manga he appears as a hard-boiled detective who's been hiding the identity of Tatsuo's wealthy grandfather. In the anime, he appears throughout the story as a wandering detective gathering information alongside Hayato. Tachigi is killed by Tatsuo Kagura in the original one-shot, but in the anime he dies after seeing Hayato in a crowd after the events of the final night. In a sense, that would mean he does die similarly to the manga, as it's implied that Hayato was actually Tatsuo Kagura. The series gives 3 major clues to this. For starters, Hayato seems to resemble the portrait of Tatsuyuki Kagura. He has greater control of the skull mask than Kanzaki did on his first time using it, and Maya refers to him as brother at the end of the series. The Skullman had a different opening internationally than it did in Japan. In Japan, the song Hikari no Machi by the band Tokyo was used as the opening, portraying the events of the manga one-shot, despite it having differences from the anime. The international opening shows an array of scenes to a song from Shiro Sagisu's OST, which I actually think is more fitting. The main reason for this change, though, is actually due to the band Tokyo's record company having a strict policy about letting their music appear in anime outside of Japan. When Funimation dubbed the anime Kodocha, they had to use the second opening for the first 2 seasons, because the first seasons was by Tokyo, which is crazy because the band Tokyo actually cameos in the anime, but the name Tokyo had to be changed in the dub.
Cut him apart like meat, like this! You're Kashu from the band Kyoto!
Nice to see you again.
Apparently, since Johnny Kitagawa's death in 2019, this embargo has been lifted, and I kinda wish they'd re-release the Skullman, maybe give it a Blu-ray release, so that we could get this opening as a special feature. It would also be a great opportunity to fix the translations, since a lot of the references I mentioned weren't caught by the translators. The most egregious one being Alucard Van Vogt being translated as Arcade Van Vogout, but they also translated Shinjin as New Humanity instead of Neo-Human, as well as having the skull pledge his allegiance to the Black Phantom instead of the Black Ghost. Thanks for watching the video till the end. If you want to support more videos like this, consider donating to my Patreon for Discord access and early access on scripted videos. If you want to give a one-time donation, I also have a Ko-Fi page in the description as well as social media links.